would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land which we meet today, wherever we are. And I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Welcome to each of you for joining us on this webinar, How to Host a Farm Stay. We're very fortunate to have Susan and Eliza put this very timely program together, attracting visitors onto farms to engage in experiences, purchasing farm products, staying on farms, and all three is a diversification that we see is really gaining traction right across regional Australia and internationally. Eliza Sanby, good morning, Eliza. This is Eliza in the pirate shirt. Has the farm stay booking platform, Farmer Stays, and she started a business only 18 months ago, I think. Eliza, is that correct?
I founded in 2021, but launched to the public in July last year.
Oh, let's say 12 months. So she's got 38 gorgeous listings and counting from right around the country. In fact, one of them is registered to be here today. She's not here yet, and I've messaged her to come. Farmers are starting to get it, and word is out. Eliza's connecting the people who need to get out of the city and get on the farms with some dirt in between their toes, and the farmers who really need to maximize their income. Susan Lee, author of these, you can't see it because of the way that, there we go, booked out, is an experienced and passionate regional tourism and business strategist with experience in marketing, trade research, product and experience development, and business planning. She is based in South Australia. I take it you're there this morning, Susan?
I am, yep. I'm in Adelaide, rainy old Adelaide today. Yep.
But
our farmers are
happy.
A
lot. You do travel a lot, and I know
I do. Yep.
We've tried to catch up when you've been in Brisbane a couple of times recently. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you very much for having me.
Before you start your talk, Eliza, I was wondering if everyone might like to very briefly introduce themselves, and that would be starting with you, Tony.
Okay, I'm Tony. I have a 40-acre property out 15 minutes past Kilcoy. We have 300 olive trees, 120 grapevines, and 4 cows, a dog, a cat, and about 50 chooks. And a 10 by 6 shed that was the original farmhouse, or used as the farmhouse, which is just sitting there waiting for a bed to arrive so that we could rent it out.
Right. Shona.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shona. I live in Dorrigo, New South Wales. We have beef farms, and we've just done up an old, which we called Oak Tree Farmhouse, an old house of my husband's family, and we're turning that into accommodation. We're in a great location. We're right next to Denga Falls. You can hear the waterfall from the house, so location-wise, it's great, but also looking at to incorporate other things that we can do, because the farmhouse is on a farm as well. So what else we can do with that? That's pretty much.
Thank you. Jen Geary.
Hello. I'm here on behalf of friends, actually. So they've got a property at Emu Vale, the back of Warwick. And thinking about setting up homestay. So just here to help get some tips and advice for them.
Thanks. Liz?
Sorry, just unmuting myself. My name is Liz Burke. We are on 110 acres, about 20 minutes out of Daylesford in Victoria. We're very fortunate to be on the tourist highway and have every Melbourne traveller visiting Victorian spa country driving past our place. We've been here for 3 years and arrived with 0 animals and now have about 300. We do pasture-raised pigs and sheep that we sell direct from farm, and we also have a farm gate stall, which does pretty well. We have multitudes of our farm gate customers asking us if we do farm stays. So we're very keen to find out more information. We've got a range of animals in our front yard that all of the farm gate customers can come and pat. So goats and donkeys and some ponies and millions of chooks and all sorts of things like that. So that's us.
What's your farm called, Susan? Liz?
Dragonfly Springs Farm.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Great.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Who's next? Anita Mariani, you're on mute. She might be able to answer. Good morning, Karen, Tin Shed Farm. Listening, not talking. Oh, yes, you're there.
Hi everyone. So I'm one half of Tin Shed Farm. Carl, my husband, is the other, and we're on 100 acres in the hinterland of Sunshine Coast, just below Mullaney. Beautiful setting. Thinking of doing some tiny homes as a addition to the farm. We run cattle, poultry, and meat chickens, so eggs, beef, and meat chickens, and soon to be pigs as well. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. Peter Long.
Yes.
Good morning, Peter.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Morning, everyone. My wife, Sarah Ferguson, and I are 10 kilometres west of Gunnedah in northwest New South Wales. And we've got 629 acres. It was the most degraded piece of land in the Namoi Valley when we bought it. We bought it for that reason, and we've just applied regen ag practices for the last 17 years. And it's really rewarding. And it's now in a state where we want to show it to people and let people come and visit us. We do Australian lowline cattle. And this year we've started supplying our steers to Feather and Bone Butchery in Sydney, because of the ethics are very important to us of raising animals. And so that's going well. And one of the things we're thinking about is that it might be good for the people who are interested in buying our meat down there to be able to come up and stay on the farm and have an experience that they might tell their friends about, and maybe more people will buy the same meat.
Yeah, that's great. Ariana? There's a new message there. Ariana, are you there? Or
Ariana's at work. She says, we're on 120 acres near Daybra and have renovated a Queenslander, which is currently listed with farmer stays. Our long-term plan involves regenerative agriculture, cattle off-grid accommodation, and whatever else takes our fancy.
fantastic. That's it. Eliza, take it away and show us how we can start.
Thank you so much for coming along today, everyone. It's amazing to see people from all over the regions across Australia, so that's brilliant. I thought I'd mention something that wasn't included in my bio, was that I was lucky enough to grow up with a family farm in northwest Victoria. So that is all part of what I bring to Farmer Stays, and diversification was just a natural thing that we did between planning out a vineyard, paddocks of sheep, and also there was a year where we planted out a Christmas tree plantation. So we were always doing different things on the farm, and it was just ingrained in you to be connected to the land and where your food came from. So Farmer Stays launched last year in July, and it's very quickly getting momentum. This quarter already, we've had 15,000 views to the website. So that's people looking at how they can find a farm stay, how they can book a farm stay. Prior to becoming a tech founder, you've all seen my bio, so it's a little bit interesting, but I did work across interior design, procurement, project management, and the construction industry, both locally and internationally. Over to Susan now.
Thanks, Eliza. So my name's Susan Lee, and Eliza and I met through the launch of my book last year, which is a culmination of many years of working around Australia with many small to medium enterprises in tourism. I also work a lot with Indigenous communities and investors, Aboriginal corporations, for example, who have got land. Anyone with land, right, really, who wants to do sort of small capital infrastructure. And I guess the common experience that I've had, starting out in tourism, I was a tour guide, I've been a tour operator. The common experience I've had is that people come along and say things like, well, it should be easy, shouldn't it? I should just, it's a campsite, it's a bit of dirt, we've got a shed, we'll just chuck a bed in it, like Tony said, and see how we go. And that gets you so far. And then my experience has been over 20 years of working in regional tourism. I lived in Alice for a few of those years, and actually worked with one of Eliza's relatives, who ran an outback ballooning tour, and he was world class. He was exporting all over the world that tour. But one of, I just watching how regions are so impacted by, floods and famine, and not so much famine, but, droughts and pests, and, then there's SARS. Remember SARS, and the pilot strike. And, tourism is a really volatile industry and shares a lot of, characteristics with ag. And I just watched who survived in tourism, who actually survived out of those SMEs. And it was really interesting to see the good operators were able to navigate those ups and downs, and they weren't just hobby businesses, they were seriously invested, and how they just chipped away over time. And so then I went into business after working I was a regional tourism marketing manager in the Flinders Ranges and Outback in South Australia, and I ran a B&B for a few years called the Outback Shack, and I sold that this year. And I think, like many people, I was sort of incidentally involved in tourism with the Outback Shack because I couldn't sell the house. No one was moving to that tiny country town like they are now. But you sort of fall into it because you got to pay your mortgage, and there's an imperative. It's not always just a nice to have. So, you sort of need to make money as a business owner. And so I booked out really to share what I've learned over the years, watching small to medium enterprises grow, and address some of those challenges, and talk about some of those common sort of myths and misconceptions about being in tourism, and also encourage people to have the confidence to get started and give it a go, but not to have the rose-colored glasses on all the time. Sometimes, but not maybe all the time. And because it's a bit of a beast, tourism, which hopefully we won't scare you off too much today. So thanks, Eliza.
So today we're going to run through definitions and demand, things to consider while starting out, planning your farm stay, lots of topics there, marketing fundamentals, and then how to get help and resources.
Eliza, is the screen being shared? Sorry, I just can't see the screen. So I'm wondering if everybody else is seeing a shared screen, or is it just me?
I'll just have a look.
No, can anybody else see the presentation?
No,
okay.
it dropped off, Eliza, when we started letting
no worries.
Yeah.
I'll just get that up again.
Thank you.
It's amazing the issues we have in CBD. Well, I'm out of the city, but an hour out, so it's not too far.
Yeah, welcome to the regions.
Yeah. There we go.
That's good. We're getting there. Thank you. Do you want to go back to the agenda? Maybe just show people.
Oh, yes. So
there you go.
So there's the agenda there that we'll be covering, and we'll first get off into the definitions and demand of agritourism.
Great. Thanks, Eliza. So just kicking off, agritourism's got a lot of different definitions depending on, what plan you're reading and who you're talking to. I think most of us could pretty much intuitively say what agritourism is. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters, and how you sell to your customers. If your customers are loving what you do and they want to go and see the country where the beefs come from, or, learn about sustainable agri practices, and they can find you, and that's agritourism. That will do. But to be sort of put a finer point on it, and to refer back to some of the great research that has been done, which is really sits behind like where we are today with FAN, and particularly in Queensland. Queensland's a real leader at the moment in agritourism. There's been some of the statistics here really reflect Queensland stats. So $4.5 billion are estimated could be generated by the agritourism sector by 2030, which is really quite massive. And back in 2020, a company called Regionality actually led some of this work with the Queensland Farmers Federation, and they defined agritourism as a tourism-related experience or product that connects agricultural products, people, or places with visitors on a farm or on rural land. And that definition has been picked up by the Australian Regional Tourism Network, who are the peak body for regional tourism operators, and they advocate into the Tourism Roundtable federally about regional and rural issues. And they also have an agritourism plan themselves for the whole of regional Australia, which has been adopted by the peak bodies in Australia. So just a couple of resources there for you. If you ever kind of hear people talking about agritourism, it's quite good just to wrap your head around some of those documents, and we'll share them with you at the end of the presentation, some of the resources that we've drawn from today. And I would just say finally here on this slide, I think the really interesting thing for me about this graph is, if you can read it, it shows the different tourism markets that we talk about a lot, which is sort of the international market, the domestic, and the domestic market, the two large ones. And within domestic, we also talk about intrastate, interstate markets. But what's really interesting about this slide is that the Queensland government are putting a lot of eggs in one basket, pardon the agri pun, but a lot of eggs in one basket about targeting the international visitor to agritourism experiences. So that's pretty interesting if you're on the east coast of Australia, because that's generally where all of the international tourists fly in. So you've got a natural advantage on the east coast, and that's obviously where Queensland are going to put a bit of their investment going forward. So you're not just thinking about visitors, but thinking about international visitors on your farm, and some of the pros and cons of that. Thanks, Eliza.
I thought it'd be great to jump into sustainability as one of the first slides, because if we can get this at the core of our farm safe business, we're ahead of the pack, and we're also on trend as well. So, and doing great things for the environment. So consumer research shows that 74% of travellers are looking for more sustainable options. On the last page of the presentation, late last year, National Sustainability Framework was delivered, and that includes a toolkit. So you can jump in there, and the resources are absolutely amazing. You can create your sustainability statement and action plan really easily. And then there's also different accreditation programs that you can look into as well. Leading bodies in this are QTIC and Ecotourism Australia. So the definition of sustainable tourism by Ecotourism Australia is tourism businesses that minimise negative impacts on the environment and maximise positive impacts for community, culture and local community. So I personally like to break sustainability into 3 areas: business, people and planet. So when you're looking at from a farm safe perspective, if you're doing a new build, you look at eco-friendly accommodation and interiors supplies, or if you're renovating or have an existing property, how can you reduce the carbon footprint of the existing building? From people, educate your guests on sustainable farming and your tourism practices. And for the planet, you can start tracking your carbon footprint. And there's many other things that we all know what we can do there. Over to you, Susan.
Thanks, Eliza. So some things to consider just starting out, and people here today are sort of at different stages of your journey. But really, I think the key thing to think about if you're transitioning from ag into tourism, or, you know, you're beginning to consider tourism, is that, you know, tourism is really a people industry. It's a people-based industry. So if if you're not really a people person, or you don't really want to give customer service, that could be quite challenging. You might find that quite challenging for you. And, you know, tourists do ask a lot of repetitive and awkward questions. So they won't know anything about your land, or about what the rules are, or how to close gates. You know, they'll be doing lots of annoying things. And so, you know, you really, I think the main thing to think about is, you know, you're in the customer service industry, you know, when you're in tourism, and people have high expectations. But, you know, often a lot of the time, and it depends on which market you're aiming for, you know, people are forgiving if they're communicated with well. So a lot of learning in tourism starting out is how to communicate the essentials quickly and early to set expectations. And it's a 24/7 industry. So what I mean by that is, when someone's emailing you, or you know, querying about, you know, availability to book a room or to book your property, people will expect a response within really 24 hours, is sometimes less, because the reality is they're looking at other things, and they're you know, they're moving on. They don't hear from you, you know, that you've kind of lost them. So if any of you have used Airbnb and you know that platform very well, you can see how competitive and how crowded that market space is, and people have a lot of choice now. Maybe not so much in the farm, in agritourism, but certainly more people are jumping onto that platform to make a buck out of spare rooms. So you really do need to stand out and be different. And to do that, you need marketing skills. Now, this is a big piece for people who are in tourism, and we'll talk a lot about that later on in this presentation. You know, I wrote a book about it because there's so much to say about marketing. But just for this slide, oh, we've just lost the presentation. I'm assuming that the internet's gone in Eliza's patch. But just to sort of, you know, continue that one, marketing is something where either you sort of learn how to do it yourself if you want to keep your costs down, or you pay someone to do it for you. Now, in regions, it can be quite hard to find good skilled people to do the marketing for you, do the social media, do the branding, the logos. So initially, you're going to have to probably learn some of these skills, and learn to harness the tools. So you might have to just get ready to learn some new things and get out of your comfort zone about getting onto social media if you don't already do that. Thinking about your branding, thinking about how things look and how they feel when people arrive. Farming and ag are both seasonal. So one thing to think about on your farm is, or your farm gate, you know, when your season, your harvesting season, or, you know, your main on season, and I'm presuming it's, you know, year round for some people. You've got different kinds of produce that you're making or you're generating. How is the tourism season going to intersect with that? And what will that mean for your workforce? And what will that mean for, you know, the effort going out, and, you know, where you put your energy and your attention? So, you know, in South Australia, it's peak season now in the outback, but it's sort of quiet season for all the coastal areas. You know, think about your region. When is the peak and when is the off season for tourism? And you've got to think about trying to get sort of year-round cash flow from visitors. And the beauty of tourism, unlike ag, particularly large-scale ag, in broadacre farming and cropping, is that you get paid when the booking is made. And who doesn't love that? Getting paid, you know, getting the money when the booking's made. So tourism's great for cash flow, and many people who go into sort of agritourism talk about that. Wow, it's so good to actually see the money in my bank account. You know, it's so different to having to wait for 90 days, or, you know, contract farming, or, you know, sometimes more. No, I can't see the presentation yet, Eliza.
Okay, thank you.
Keep on trying. I'll just keep pushing on. So I guess they're really, you know, the workforce expectation. I touched a little bit on that. Oh, yep, it's coming up now. With workforce, I think a lot of people think the glamour of tourism, you know, they look at the beautiful pictures and the branded websites. And in some ways, you know, that's an image, very much an image that we project to the consumer. Behind the scenes, as you would all know, because you're on the land and you're in farming, it's a little bit crazy. You know, you're paddling crazily to keep up. Any small business is kind of doing that. And I think for your workforce expectation is, if you're running an accommodation, you will have to think about cleaning toilets and doing laundry and changing sheets. I mean, and cleaning, you know, the huts or the sheds, or, you know, keeping the maintenance nice, because people rate you on that, and that really matters when it comes to consumers and people's experience. So think about, you know, the reality of running a tourism business is, you know, when you're employing people, can they clean a toilet in 2 or 3 minutes? Can they turn around a room in half an hour? You know, can they take direction? And what do you need to sort of get people skilled up to do that, and to do that day in and day out? So they're just a couple of things to think about when you're starting out in your farm stay. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see what your comments are about some of those things. Now I'm going to throw to Eliza to talk about some of the challenges of starting out, in particular the legislative environment that we're in, particularly when you're on, you know, on land, and you can't just sort of develop willy-nilly. You have to sort of comply, and tourism's got lots of different areas where you need to think about legislation. So thanks, Eliza.
Thank you, Susan. Sorry, the presentation dropped out there for a minute. So planning your farm stay, it's just like if you were to plan any other new business, really. So the biggest recommendation is there's so much information out on the internet. So if you can set up a meeting with your local council early to find out what permits you need to build or develop your farm stay concept, and then also let them know about the type of things you'd like to do at the farm, whether you're looking at offering farm to plate services or tours, or school groups, or whatever you'd like to offer at the farm. Also have a conversation with them about that. And then some of the common things in agritourism is getting your DA approvals for the accommodation through council. And then the other thing is, if you're serving up cooking for guests, there'll be food safety requirements depending on which state you're in. Also, when you run an accommodation business, you also need to abide by the fire safety requirements. And then if you're looking at serving alcohol, possibly, most likely, highly likely a liquor license. And then if you're looking at offering, you know, on-farm butchering, that type of thing. And then also you'll be also needing to renew your OH&S policies to incorporate having guests out on the farm. There is a really brilliant website. It's called Australian Business Licence and Information Service. So I've actually got that link there, and you can literally put in the type of farm you are. So I did a little practice search the other day, did alpaca farm in Daybra, and then I also added holiday house. So you could also, if you're looking at running a restaurant, you could type in, there's an option there for cafe. So there's lots of different options you can build into that search. And then it does bring up a very overwhelming amount of topics, but it's everything from the HR side, anything from the government or the regulatory organisations, what they would require. And then you can print out that list, and then when you do meet with council, you can have it there ready to go. There might be extra things on there that you don't need to meet, or and also the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries also includes all their requirements. So it's a really brilliant resource. And then also the other item you'll need bringing people out to your farm is public and product liability insurance. So there are specialist insurance brokers that work in agritourism. And on the back of this document, there is a link to the FAM resources, and there's a brilliant member there that did a presentation on insurance. So that's the other thing to consider, and then you can put that into your budgeting of what you'd need.
That's right. And I would also say that's a minimum requirement if you're going to be in tourism. So when you work with your regional tourism organisation and start getting listed on sort of the state tourism site and regional tourism websites and start going down that sort of, more public, getting a digital footprint out there, your minimum requirement will be that you have, I think it's up to 20 million cover in public liability. It might be more for farms. Farms are dangerous places. There's chemicals and tools and animals and cars moving around, and when you've got kids and those sorts of things, it's a bit of a hairy mix. So making sure that you have good sort of protocols and processes will also really help. You communicate with your staff. So after you've looked at sort of all of the legal things, and you might need a little bit of a sit down and a cup of tea or something a bit stronger and kind of work out what comes next. You can do some mud mapping of some of your operations issues, and it might lead you to thinking about, some of these things. This is a tool that Eliza created in Canva, and it's a really useful tool if you're just sitting down, in your, with your family or your business partner or your life partner, and you're thinking about how are we going to make this thing work? How are we going to add on these extra strings to our bow? And these are just like 3 areas that I thought of, running my B&B. Housekeeping was a big piece. I had spent a lot of time, talking to my housekeeper about the security, working with the gardener, returning lost keys to people, stocking up the wood pile, all sorts of things, getting the consumables, the toilet paper, and when I couldn't be there, I was living 400 kilometers away. So, this systems around housekeeping and communication offline, so that people, the rooms are ready effectively. You need those rooms ready. That's a really important piece. Where are you going to get your sheets from? Are you going to do laundry on your own farm, or is there a regional, provider of sheets and laundry? That might be a good, cheap and fast solution, and you could build the cost of that into possibly your room rate. So think about things that are going to save you time, because sometimes it's a bit of a false economy to say, oh, we'll just clean the rooms ourselves, when you've got to go and work with the pigs, or clean out the chook yard, or go off farm to drop the kids off, or whatever. So all of these time saving by doing this sort of operations mapping, mud mapping of all of the issues and things that you need to think about, it starts to help you plan a really sort of efficient way of running, your tourism side. In the bookings and the customer service, you can see there's loads of questions there. It's about, will I sell directly to people at the farm gate or through my website, or will I rely on farmer stays? If I'm going to have, attractions, not just accommodations, but tours, how am I going to sell those things? Am I going to sell them at the time, or am I going to sell them before people come? So thinking through, how you're going to actually cross-sell and upsell different things to do. And then, of course, marketing, it's a bit of a beast, but how are you going to work with the local community and, get the local community to refer friends and family? Are you going to give, lots of people do this, they give locals free entry so that they come back repeatedly with their visitors when they come to your region. That's a great way to get sort of the visitors to pay, but the locals sort of come in for free. So they do that at Mona in Tasmania. If you've been out to the Museum of Old and New Art in Hobart, locals go in for free, and everyone else pays $25 or $30 for an amazing contemporary art experience. So it's a common strategy. So the tip is here to mind map your operations issues, just to sort of get them on paper, and then you'll slowly work through them over time.
Thanks, Susan. So now, considering the different types of buildings out there, the options, and also the big thing when you're looking at different options is to consider your budget, lead times, and your market, of course. What is your clientele going to enjoy? And then there's also the ongoing maintenance of the option that you choose, and what's the weather like? How are people going to enjoy your space? So I'll run through some key options here. So the top left-hand corner, you've got the glamping safari tents that can be built in almost in a lot of very regional or remote destinations. You could be looking at a new build or a renovation. or there's also so many incredible brands out there that do these luxury prefab tiny house style homes. So they do come under that banner. But so here's a glass one here. And then you've got down in the bottom left, a really beautiful rustic modern, which feels just like the shearing shed did as a kid. So, and then you've also got refurbishing, like this particular farm stay here, Little Valley Farm Stay. They've refurbished a 1950s train carriage. My auntie and uncle are currently refurbishing some old portable classrooms into a beautiful farm stay. And then you've got camping. So this is Gilgooma Station. They've set up, they're in New South Wales, and they've set up the free range, the free camping. And then they're offering some powered sites. And then they've got this great camp kitchen, and also you can see the kids having a great time in the trough there. So they've also got shared bathroom facilities for campers. And then there's things like bedding. So say you're looking at building a farm stay with 2 rooms, you could look at possibly having twin beds. So then you could separate, say, a king into 2 king singles. So what's quite popular is there could be families traveling, or there could be a group of ladies going off on a retreat together. So it's definitely a bonus if you do have that option to offer people separate beds in the same room.
And bunks are quite good too, aren't they, for families and kids, and sometimes people don't mind bunking in together if you've got hikers coming through, or mountain bike riders, or horse riding, if you allow horse riding.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really going back to focusing on your target market.
I think Eliza's just frozen there. Sorry, Eliza, you might have to go out and come back in. Just have to text her. So on the target markets, I'll just pick up and talk a little bit more about target markets, because, you know, the design of your place around your target markets will make a big difference. Particularly, you know, a lot of people are sort of focusing on high-end, high-yielding markets, and over the years, I must say that the people who have done quite well, and you can do very well at that end of the market, but there's a lot more people who have less money and a lot more families who are traveling around in regions, particularly now that we're sort of going through, dare I say, a mini recession in Australia. So looking at the camping market, or the affordable family stays market, and this is a bit of a mixed message here, because, you know, caravan parks, they've put in a lot of cabins over the last 10 years, and some of the research shows that they get a lot of margin out of cabins. I mean, you think about, you can sell a cabin for sort of $150 to $200 a night in a caravan park with the full amenities and all of the branding, and, you know, the playgrounds and the pools and stuff for the kids, versus camping, you know, at $30 a night for a vehicle. So no one's going to get rich with camping, but what it does do is, if you're selling produce and if you're selling tours, it does give you a volume market, and it does make your place look busy. And if, you know, the optics are really important in tourism. So if you are attracting, you know, school groups, family groups, they can be a really good option for you year round. The high-end market is, you know, is worth considering. There's pros and cons of going for that. It's a bit risky to go high early. You need a lot of money to invest in some of those, you know, tiny houses or small cabins, and you want to do your sums and make sure that you can actually get return on your investment. If you're interested in kind of making money out of tourism, just make sure that, you know, you're charging the right rate. And again, going back to the operations, that you're not putting them so far in the back block that it takes you sort of half half an hour to drive down and half an hour to drive back in order to clean, you know, one cabin. That's just not going to be efficient. If you're going to put one in at the back block, think about putting 5 in, each with their own different view and with some, you know, nice kind of screening between each of them, so that you can service them, so that your cleaners, you know, make it easy to service and easy to maintain and clean. So you can drive your tractor down with your sheets on the back. You can actually go and knock over 5 of them, you know, all in the same morning, ready for 2 o'clock check-in, and, you know, away you go. So think about the practicalities of servicing, because that will get really, really boring really quickly for your staff, and you'll lose staff, and you'll probably lose interest in tourism. And you know, you want to keep it interesting and keep it easy to manage for yourself as much as possible to go the distance. Eliza's back.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to make a very quick joke. Susan said to me to make a hard copy of my presentation, because you never know what could happen. So I'm really sorry that I keep cutting in and out. Can everyone see the screen?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, so we've covered the exteriors. When it cut out, I was mentioning to consider with bunk beds, the capacity of the bunk beds. Sometimes a lot of bunk beds, pre-made bunk beds, are built for children, so it is important to either build them yourself for a higher weight, or buy ones that are for an adult. If you're going down that path of having adults sleeping in them. So then when you're planning your farm stay, the next component, you'll be so engrossed in the exterior side, and then it's, well, let's start thinking about the inside, the interiors of the farm stay, your furniture selections, and interior design goes right down to, you know, your light switch. So it's a really involved part of building a project or doing a refurbishment. So I've just put together a couple of top tips. One of the ones I learnt at design school that's always been a major one for me is find an image, something from nature, a pattern or an interior that inspires the mood you'd like. Use layers of natural materials and neutral colour on the walls. And tourism is about place and destination. So use material reference that reflect that. Come back to the place, local art, fabrics, and a motif, and just really drawing in your farm, what your farm is. And then also less is more, calming on the eye. And also if you're having a farm stay that's focused at families, or any farm stay, you don't want to have lots of cluttered things around because they may get broken. And then also, if you're not feeling confident with this, or you're time poor, engage an interior designer, or there are also interior stylists that can come in at the end at the whale. So an interior designer will work through the whole project with you, and then an interior stylist you could they could come in towards the furniture side. So this is a little inspiration image here of the turnips, and how it's drawn on the colours of the turnips, and you can see that little linen cotton tea towel underneath, so you can really draw on that as well. And there's a really great website out there called Pinterest. It's highly addictive. You'll be deeply inspired. There's a little screenshot there. You could type in anything you like and you'll find a whole range of images. So we'll go across to the next slide. And then one of the other interior design, brand design practices is developing mood boards. So on the left there is a brand and experience board. This is actually the board I developed for farmer stays. So I was looking into different type fonts and the whole experience of how do I want my website to feel, and then the colors there as well. And then you can also develop an interior and exterior mood board and collate your images on there. So a great program to use is Canva. It's a brilliant marketing source that you can use and create all sorts of documents, but you can just easily drag and drop pictures on there. So, or you can just save them in your Pinterest, and you can start folders by, so you could create a mood board say you're doing a big build, then it might be one for the bathroom, one for the kitchen, and do one for each space. So I just wanted to show that tool a little bit different from everyday farming. And you can also, if using computers isn't your thing, which everyone's online today, but you can, and those Canva and Pinterest are really easy to use, but you can look at getting some magazines as well. Country Style's a great one. Different magazines, and just cut out pictures and pop them on a piece of paper. So I just wanted to put up some inspirational images here. So drawing on the stories of your people, produce, farm history, nature in your region. So looking at these images here, on the left here, this is a converted dairy down in Victoria, Ross Farm. So they've actually used a old trough and converted that into the bathtub. And what I really love about this project is they've created that gorgeous window. So you're in this really dark cave-like bathroom, and then you've got a whole outlook of the farm. So that's when you're living on land, you've got artwork in every direction. So use windows and doors with glass if you can, to have a good look outside. And then the second one to the left is a farm stay in Portugal. It's an organic fruit and veg farm stay. So they've really gone with a neutral but nature connection to nature. So you can see there in the middle there the branch, and then they've got a little pendant light there. So there's just, and then they've got the wood stacked in the cupboard, and then you can see it's most likely handmade local pottery. So I just thought that was a really beautiful image to inspire how you can use nature or look for, reduce, reuse, recycle. Are there secondhand chairs that you could paint up? How can you look at nature on the farm to bring that into the interiors? And then third to the left is a beautiful Spanish cafe. And what I thought was great about this image is they've used the neutral colour, and then they're celebrating their produce. So how can you bring that into your farm stay? And there's just so many ways to do this. So the point of these images is to really just spark that inspiration. And then on the lucky last one there, an Italian home. So this is another case where you can see transports you to another era. They've used this beautiful warm feature lighting on the ceiling, and transported you back to an era where there wasn't big cabinetry, so or hanging of the pots. So that's become the artwork. And I'm not sure how everyone else is feeling, but I'm just about to cook up a big pasta in this kitchen. So it's about inspiring people in your home. And then the kitchen table there looks like a log milled, potentially from a local area or from the farm. So I just wanted to get everyone super inspired there.
And I think one of the main things there as well, Eliza, is on your farm, it's really important that you reference what's important to your farm and your place, and tell your story. So what we see a lot of in tourism is people doing mood boards out of the same magazines, and so what you get is a lot of the same looking kind of very austere, very modern looking kind of cabins going on to farm properties. Now there is a market that wants that, but I think more interesting and more unique, and to be special and different and stand out, it's really about using the materials that you've got lying around, repurposing, telling that sustainable story as well through the repurposing of materials, taking some family heirlooms if you've got them, like mixing it up and actually doing it in your style, which is what I love about some of these images, because they've really got personality. And we all love being in places with personality, because the old wood and the old grain silos, or if you can repurpose things with effect, that can become the feature and the talking point, and that will make you stand out and get people remembering you. And that's kind of what you want in tourism marketing. Yeah.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah. So just sort of on that, I think one of the key things to think about as well as in terms of, tourism language, there's lots of like weird acronyms and like terms that we use in tourism. So we talk about destinations, regions, products, experiences, all this kind of thing. And when it comes to, I guess, your farm almost is the destination, but you've got to sort of remember that your destination also sits within a region, and that region is marketed by state and regional tourism bodies. So there's a hierarchy, if you like, that you can leverage and use, and we'll talk about that briefly in a minute. But when someone comes and spends a night in your property, there is a real opportunity, and some of you are already doing the experiences before the bed night. It doesn't matter which way you do it, but the good thing is that you're thinking about marrying up the bed night with the experience, or the things to see and do. In regions where they talk about tourism as economic development, and where the agritourism strategies and the thinking kind of comes, is the more that you have to see and do for visitors, the more likely they'll stay another night. That's another, let's call it $180 a night if they're staying in a cabin, give or take, which is a pretty high spend, for a couple or for a single person. Then if they're staying another night, then chances are they're going to have to, buy a meal, get a coffee, maybe fill up with petrol. So that spend goes all through your region and through your town. So the more that you have to offer and see and do on your property, the more opportunity that you'll have to make money and make margin from keeping people on your farm in your destination. So creating a destination sort of means giving people things to see and do. And here's some examples in this slide of some of the things that that we've seen. Everything from sort of the plunge pools and the bathing experiences with the beautiful view. Night activities are often really popular because families don't always want to go down to the pub. People don't always drink. So things to see and do at night time, or experiences, whether it's animal spotting or being around a fire, or sort of night art trails, or interesting night picnics, or things like that you can offer. Think outside the square. And of course we know that the wellness the wellness industry is booming, and yoga, relaxation, meditation experiences and retreats, and of course Indigenous experiences are on the increase, and are really of interest to that international market as well, who really wants to understand more about Australian culture in all of its shapes and forms. So there's just some experiences to think about, and when you're thinking about planning and investing in capital or going for grants, this is the kind of infrastructure that can help you to develop products, whether it's fire pits or decking around plunge pools, that kind of thing, shelters for multi-purpose spaces. You can think about applying for grants to extend your products, and then give your overnight visitors things to do in the day. So I've just talked about destinations a little bit there, so I won't sort of spend too long on this slide. I'm just conscious of time. But I think here, it's about thinking about making your farm the destination, or your place the destination, and working on that, for your commercial benefit, really, and make it easy for people to, to buy sellable products, whether that's, massages or food hampers. Think about what visitors need and then meet that need, especially if you're a long way from a supermarket. A self-drive market, often they will self-cater. A budget-conscious market will self-cater unless you're providing food or food hampers for them. Not everybody's got like a champagne budget in this current market environment, and not all children are going to eat really fancy foods. So think again about your market and how, if you're keeping mum and dad happy, you're keeping those kids happy, and you've got to cater for different diets and dietary requirements as well. So if you are going into that food catering provision, again, you need to let people know before they come whether they can bring their own food or whether you'll supply that, and what your limitations are, and keeping choices to a minimum, because you don't want to overwhelm people with too much choice. I think that's another, people are on holiday, they want to relax and enjoy your space, not have to make another sort of 20 decisions about the kind of juice or the kind of burger. Just keep it simple. I think that's the key message. So we're going to move now into the marketing, sort of step number 5 in planning your planning your farm stay. The key thing here is to do your market research. And if you go to Tourism Research Australia or through your regional tourism body, they should have regional visitor profiles, which are they're gold. I use them all the time in my work, and they're run through TRA nationally. We're very lucky in the tourism industry. We have really good data. Now they sort of might look a little bit different depending on who you're getting it from, but the data is essentially the same. So every quarter in Australia, the federal government invests in surveys of visitors who are leaving states or leaving the country at the various sort of access points where people come and go. So airports, train stations. I think they now do some caravan parks as well. And they survey people for how long they've been in that region, roughly what they've spent, how many days, and where they're from. So we get this great data, at a high level about what people are spending and who's coming through your region. And you'll start to see trends over time. And what I've seen over the years is that most visitors come from intrastate. So that's locals traveling locally from within your state. That is generally by far the majority of sort of between 60 to 80% of visitors are people traveling within the region. And there's some exception the closer you get to capital cities, of course, because you've got international travel factored in that. Some people are leaving, that's no problem. So the key thing is to do your research. In WA in 2021, they did some research about agritourism segments. If you could just go back, thanks, Eliza. Sorry, I think. Yeah. That's okay. So just my final point here is about the niches, and I wanted to share this with you because I think this is probably useful in your neck of the woods as well. So this research showed that agritourism has 5 different segments, and this in tourism we like to talk about segments and we like to give people personalities, and it's a helpful way of thinking things through. So one of the segments is called connected adventurers, and I can share this online later, with people. And the connected adventurers are a group of people who like to seek an opportunity to bond with their travel party, and they're there to try something new. So coming to your farm might be a new experience. Then there's a group called the conscious unwinders. These are probably, city slickers who are getting out of town for a weekend, and they just want a low key but very authentic experience and not be fussed, too much, and just connect with the land and connect with you and the experience of, being on the country, maybe relive some, childhood memories. The third segment is called the indulgers. These are the people who are a little bit higher yielding and willing to spend a little bit more. So they do want the champagne, they do want the gourmet strawberries dipped in the, the gourmet chocolate, they want all of those beautiful, and who doesn't, let's face it. But this group, they're the indulgent market. They want the plunge pool and, all of the bells and whistles. So you can go crazy on them if that's your market. Then there's the grey nomads, who I think we're all pretty familiar with. They're quite spontaneous, open-minded. They're willing to travel the extra mile to collect experiences. Don't spend a lot on accommodation, but will spend on experiences. So they'll buy the beautiful food, they'll have a nice lunch, they'll go to a local museum, they'll buy souvenirs, but they'll stay in their own van. So these are great for the farm gate kind of experience, if you're offering that. And then, of course, there's the family explorers, who are the self-drive market. The family market is the bread and butter for regional tourism. And this group are really into more educational experiences, and wanting to entertain and educate, themselves and the family in their group. Not always kids. Sometimes, particularly with our migrant populations, people are travelling from overseas to visit their families in Australia, and so you get extended families of uncles and aunties, grandparents and children. You have all levels travelling in these family groups. So really think about accessibility and cultural accessibility as well. Just quickly, thanks, Eliza. If you could go to the next slide. This is the model I was talking about, the levels of tourism marketing. And I talk about this a lot in my book. most of us are sort of working at the sort of council and the regional level, but each of these levels, from the council, the regional tourism body, the state tourism commission, the national body, which is called Tourism Australia, and then you also have an international body. So, you know, we won't go into that too much, but they set the sustainable tourism development goals, including a lot of our sort of, you know, carbon footprint and, you know, cultural tourism, sustainable development goals globally, which Australia is a signatory to. At the grassroots level in agritourism, most of us will be working at that sort of council and regional, and some at the state tourism level, as the states are beginning to embrace agritourism, you know, much more proactively now, and hopefully we'll see more in the grants and business support space here. So what that means is, you know, some of your councils are funding regional tourism bodies, and they'll just shoot you to the RTO. So find out who that is. I think FAN are doing a great job. I feel like FAN are sort of like the intermediary between the ag space and the tourism space, which is perfect, because lots of RTOs don't know anything about ag. That's just the reality, you know, they're marketers, and they sort of sit with the state tourism body, and they won't be able to tell you much of the stuff, you know, that we've talked about today. It'll be quite a different conversation, but still super useful for you, because they give business support around getting onto things like the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse, which is a free resource for every tourism operator. They do branding, and they do a lot of communication to consumers to draw people into your region. So, you know, working with them is really important. So if nothing else from today, and I'm sure you've got a lot out of the previous slides, but here's just 7 marketing fundamentals for anyone starting in a tourism business. And I'm of the view that if you just do the basics well, you're probably about 60-70% there. And a lot of these things are very low cost or free, and some of them you will need to pay some money, particularly around building a website, that kind of thing. The first thing you can do for free is budget for your marketing spend. Just, you know, start working out, you know, where on that sort of those circles are you going to sort of pitch, and how you're going to get people at that sort of explore, dream, you know, booking kind of stage of their booking journey. Getting a Google account, you know, Google is one of the world's largest search engines after ChatGPT. And if you're not on Google, if you're not searchable by the algorithms within Google, you know, you're really missing a massive opportunity. A lot of this stuff is really about building a digital footprint, I call it. So getting a Google account and getting your farm listed on Google Maps and getting some pictures up on Google Maps will help literally put you on the map. If people can't find you, they're not going to be able to stay with you. If they can't see you, you know, from Melbourne or from Adelaide or from Brisbane or wherever they're searching for their next stay, where they do have good internet, doesn't matter if you don't have good internet, they've got good internet where they're searching, they need to see that your farm, the little red tier pops up and your business name pops up, and that your opening hours are there, and that, you know, you're open and accessible, and that you are a legitimate tourism business, not just a sort of an operating farm. So that's a critical one. The others there are really about, you know, when we all introduced ourselves, some of you had farm names, business names. This is critical. Being able to call your farm something that people can remember, because that's what people are going to Google, not the farm out the back of, you know, Donga, and I think it was over. They remember names, so making sure you have a brand and a name, and that you have to pitch it all the time. You know, hi, I'm Susan Lee from Clear Vision Consulting. You know, it just rolls off your tongue. You don't even think about it after a while, and people will remember your farm. Well, that's Tony from that farm. You know. You do need a website. There's no really getting away from it. Websites, again, it's about being found by Google. It's a big business card. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to, you know, come up when people are searching for your business name. And we could talk a lot about building websites, but these days you can build one yourself, or you can build one anywhere between a couple of grand to about $7,000. And generally in tourism, it's good to have a button that people can book, particularly reservations, to book directly. Otherwise, you are then really relying on a service like Farmer Stays to do that booking, you know, on your behalf, and, you know, take a commission, which is a really common business model in tourism. So you need to work out whether you'll go direct or indirect. registering with ATDW. Once you've got your website, your ABN, your insurance, your brand, your great photographs, then you can go and register for free. In Australia, we're very lucky. The federal government has funded and supported a business called Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. Now, you'll hear more about this, if not through the FAN network, then through your regional tourism organisation. This is basically an online database of all the tourism product across Australia: events, tours, accommodation, attractions, you name it, campsites, things to see and do. Councils around Australia and all sorts of state and regional websites draw down from the ATDW to get listings. So if you're not on that website, if you're not on the ATDW database, you won't get listed in your regional accommodation listings or things to see and do listings. So this has been around now for over 10 years. It's takes a few minutes to set up, maybe 20 minutes to set up, and it's well worth it. So I'll leave that slide there on that note, and you can read the rest in the recording. Don't forget, marketing is more than just promotions. Your price, your market position, and your product, they all have to align. So, don't charge campers, $100 a night for a campsite. It's probably not going to be in their budget. Making sure that things are actually aligned to what your competitors are charging and what the market expects, because your price is a really important signal. And just making sure that your price includes that you're making money after you've paid the cleaner to clean the rooms, you've paid for food hampers. Make sure that you're making margin after all of those costs come out. I see a lot of people over servicing and over delivering and then wondering, why aren't we making money? We're charging $500 a night, but we're not making any money. It's because you're over delivering in your service. So make sure that you do things cheaply but well, so that you can maximize your profits and you can trade another year. Thanks, Eliza.
Yeah, so keeping in touch. I put the Farmers Day website there, and then also social media. So follow along, jump onto Farmers Days, and you can see what other farmers are doing. Treat yourself to a Farmers Day, book yourself a Farmers Day. And what you will notice when you come onto the Farmers Days website is the diversity of Farmers Days. There's really immersive farms days, and then there's also country experiences where people are going out to working farms, and then from there the farmers recommending all the amazing operators that are open that people can then go out to visit and be involved in the local community. So keep in touch, and also I'm available via email. My email will be at the back of this group, so reach out to me anytime. I'm more than happy to help. I predominantly work running Farmers Days, but I do also do one-on-one design consults as well. So feel free to reach out about that. I'm based in the Moreton Bay region, so that's about 20k out of Brisbane. And then to the right there, we've got the QR code for Susan's book. I'm personally about 3/4 through the book. There is so much information jam-packed into one book, and it's specific to Australia tourism. So it's absolutely incredible. So that's there. And then we've got this page of resources. So I'm going to actually go in and also add resources for each state, because we've had so many people turn up from different areas. So each state's got different agritourism plans and different resources. So there's lots of useful information there that I've built out, and Susan's also added in some details. So I know we've gone a bit over, and it was so great. We did all our introductions, and we then just wanted to see if there was any questions we could answer.
I can guess that the reason that there aren't any questions being asked is that you have been so comprehensive. It's been fantastic.
Good. That's great.
Agreed.
Thank you, Jackie. We did struggle to cram it into 45 minutes.
We did. We went for it.
There's been a lot of slides that have been cut, and there's a lot to cover, and yeah, and that's why Susan and I teamed up, because our two different special.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Just dropped out, poor thing. Welcome
Look,
to that's the reality, isn't it, of regional regional life? You drop in and out, like, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Look, Susan, this has been fantastic. It's been
Great.
Been really eye-opening, and I can imagine people rewatching it tonight, tucked up in bed.
Yeah, and take it slow.
Getting their meaningful others to sit down and absorb this and start to see the bigger picture and what it can mean for them. The recording will take a couple of hours to get up, but it will be there by tonight for everyone to rewatch.
Thank you.
Are there any questions, Peter?
I'll probably have a whole heap of them tomorrow. At the moment, I'm just absorbing all the information. It's been fabulous. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Peter. That's great. And, reach out to either Eliza or myself. Eliza, Farmer Stays is a very unique product in Australia. I haven't seen any other dedicated farm-based listing that's got a commercial basis. So when I worked in the Flinders Ranges, there was one called Station Stays, but it never it sort of took off, but it never really kind of got managed by a business. And I think that's really, really critical, because as Airbnb, as you're probably in your neck of the woods, I know in Adelaide, the government's looking at putting more of a tax on Airbnb owners and hosts. So if you're niche and you've got a target market, and people want farms, they want, country regional experiences, and what better way to tell the story of ag and from the land than through tourism. And so these kind of listings are, I think she's really onto something. And that's kind of why I've partnered with her, and I back her in 100%. So I think, if it's a useful learning exercise for people to at least list with Farmer Stays. It's target marketing at its best, really.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
I just wish that Eliza was here for us to all say goodbye to her.
And that beautiful pirate shirt.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly.
Well, thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time today and taking the time out to be with us and to listen. It means a lot to us. So thanks for inviting us along, and we hope that we can, work together in future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for everyone else for coming along, and enjoy rewatching it.